What's going on, Freight Skills, and welcome to another video on the Freight Skills TV network. In this video, we're talking about a really popular topic. I've been getting a lot of questions about it, especially with the rise of popularity of LinkedIn and just the general unavailability of shippers lately, right? It has not been easy in 2023 to get in touch with shippers. So I want to talk a little bit about follow-up. Everybody's been asking me about follow-up. And what I find is that follow-up is the number one thing that separates a good agent from a struggling agent, right? We call them struggling, stuck and struggling. And I don't want you guys to be struggling agents. So in this video, we're gonna uncover everything that you need to know about follow-up, how to do it right, and how to do it so that you're not annoying your prospects. Really huge. So before we get into how to execute proper follow-up with your shipping prospects, make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of the updates that come from Freight Skills, the #1 freight-related YouTube channel. We're up and coming. We're at about 4,200 subscribers at the time of this video. I can't thank each and every one of you enough for watching, all right? And if I've ever helped you at all, putting a like on this video or giving me a comment really helps me get my message out to more people, and it helps encourage me to see what kind of content that you guys like to see. Let's get right into follow-up, because follow-up is the #1 thing that is going to determine your freight broker success. If you're having failure right now, by tweaking your follow-up process, I anticipate you can have better results as soon as next week. Before we talk about actually how to do follow-up, let's talk about what follow-up is. Now, there's a statistic. I'm not sure the exact statistic or who did the study. Maybe I'll link it down below if I can find it. But it takes on average 12 contacts before a B2B business client will buy from you. Consumer, I think it's actually more than that, right? So if you think about big brands and how they do follow-up, there's a lot that we can learn as freight brokers. And I'll tell you a quick example. The other day, my family was looking at buying a Jeep Wrangler to trade in a car down in Florida. And we went to a dealer and they somehow got a hold of my information. One of my family members gave them my email by accident, or I was in their system, whatever it was. And for the last week and a half, I have gotten at least 3 to 4 calls a day from this Jeep dealer. I've gotten 3 to 4 emails per day and 2 text messages per day. When you look at the amount of follow-up that car dealers are doing, the reason that they do it is because they're very market aware. They're aware that their market is very hyper-competitive and they can't afford not to be following up incessantly. We have to take this approach into freight brokering because much like car dealers, we are also in a very, very hyper-competitive market. And the reason why it's so competitive is because there's such a low barrier to entry, right? Anybody with decent credit, the money to get a bond and some insurance, and has any knowledge of doing some filings on the internet can get a broker license and watch YouTube and start reaching out to shippers, right? The barrier to entry is very low, but the success rate is also very low. We need to stand out somehow, and the way we're gonna do that is with follow-up. So I'm going to give you a few key pointers that you need to know while you're doing your follow-up, as far as how many times you should follow up and what avenues you should look at to be following up with your prospects. All right, so the #1 point that you need to understand about follow-up is the population that you're following up with. The most important group of people that you should be following up with on a minimum weekly basis is every single company and person that has ever engaged with you. At the top of that list needs to be the people that have ever given you work, but I know a lot of people on my channel have not gotten consistent work yet, so it wouldn't make sense for you to just be reaching out to anybody who's ever answered an email or connected with you on LinkedIn. So when we think about follow-up from that perspective, you have to understand that you're not always going to get an answer on your first outreach. 99% of the time, you're not going to get a quote request. That's why if you review any of my other sales videos, I tell you that your goal on your sales calls is not to get a load or a quote or even bond with anybody. Your goal on a sales call is to get the right person on the phone and get their email address so that you can move the conversation forward from there. When you're following up, you have to make sure that when you get that information, you're actually putting it to use. Some of you guys and girls are making one phone call, hanging up the phone, not getting a quote request, and then calling it quits on the shipper. You can't be doing that anymore, all right? If somebody takes your phone call, if you have a name, if you have an email, no matter how you got it, You need to be following up with that list every single week. The way you need to do that is with both a combination of emails and phone calls. What I recommend you do, this is what you should do from me. Take every single person that has ever engaged with you, write down every phone number and email, divide it into 2, and switch off every week. 1 week, take half of your list, follow up with all of them by email, follow up with the next by phone. The next week, the people you emailed last week, call them. The people you called last week, email them. And just keep flipping back and forth. Your list should continue to grow, right? So if you have 25 people on your list, you have 12 people that you're gonna call every week, you have 12 people that you're gonna email every week. The next week you might have 50. So you have 25 people that you're gonna call, 25 people you're gonna email. And then you're just gonna keep switching them back and forth. The best way to organize this is with a CRM, and we actually have a Freight Skills approved, Lewis developed freight broker CRM that's in the works right now. It's about 3 to 4 weeks from launching. So if you want to get on that list, make sure you check the description below. It's gonna be really exciting, and it's gonna help you do a lot of these things that I'm talking about. That's number 1 with follow-up. Make sure you're following up with every single person that has ever gotten in contact with you. You know what? I'm gonna put a resource in the description. It's gonna be a follow-up guide. You know, it pays to watch my videos halfway through because I just came up with that. And there's gonna be a follow-up guide for you in the description if you're watching this video. And it's gonna give you just a few scripts that you can use to re-engage your audience so that you can see what I mean when I say to follow up. Number 2, let's talk a little bit about what you use to follow up. Because in general, like I said, it takes almost 10 to 12 contacts for a person to start to trust you enough to even give you a shot at the next step. So what does our follow-up look like in terms of what are we using to reach out? In general, let me tell you this. When somebody sees your information on more than one source, they develop a subconscious bond with you. Big brands use this all the time. You know, like I'll take Coca-Cola, for example. You see them on TV, you see them on billboards, you see them in airports, you see them on your phone, you hear them on the radio. There are multiple places where you see Coca-Cola constantly being thrown in your face. So you have this natural bond with Coca-Cola. That's why it's such a household name, because you see it so much. You just see it and you know what it is. It will be very hard pressed to find somebody in the United States that doesn't know what Coca-Cola is. How do we create this effect with something as exciting as a freight brokerage? Well, the way you do it is you use multiple channels. So in our brokerage, we use 3 channels: phone, LinkedIn, email. That's it. It's that simple. I wish it was more exciting. What we do is if we reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, the follow-up is not done on LinkedIn. The follow-up is done by phone and then by email. And we just keep going, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, until we get in touch with them. In general, as a rule for you, I wouldn't follow up with LinkedIn if you have an email or a phone number. The goal is always to go from LinkedIn to phone or LinkedIn to email. You never really want to go phone to LinkedIn or email to LinkedIn. That really just doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a social media entertainment platform for networking, and you got a lot of time wasting and distractions in LinkedIn. So you don't want to use that as the primary form of follow-up. So what does our follow-up process look like? Again, I'm going to put a little bit more details about this in the follow-up guide, but what we tend to do is we follow up in tiers. What do I mean by that is once we establish contact with a person, the follow-up begins on a weekly basis. And it looks like this. After the first phone call, immediately after that phone call, they're getting an email, right? They're getting an email explaining what we do, asking for a shot at their freight, all that good stuff. From that point, they're going to get at least 2 emails and 1 phone call per week, asking them if there's more freight. And that process continues for the next 3 to 4 weeks. All right, so if you're gonna write anything down, what I would write down is after the initial contact, 2 emails per week, 1 phone call per week. That's what it has to be. And that lasts for 3 weeks. You'll end up contacting them quite a bit of times, and look how fast you can get to 12 contacts, right? Because this is a numbers game that we're playing. You get to 12 contacts now in 3 weeks. So that's 12 follow-ups. Right now, think about how many times you're following up with a client right now or a prospect. Sometimes when they say there's no chance, yeah, sure. You know, you just write them off. But if they don't give you a no, or they say we don't have freight right now, or they say our bidding's closed, there's some objections that you can get by. We do that by constantly following up. Now, after that 3 to 4 weeks, you might think like, oh, I'm not getting any freight, it's done. Absolutely not. That is wrong. From that point, they get switched over into a lower tier of follow-up, which is going to be 1 email per week and 1 phone call every 2 weeks. All right. This especially works for big clients who tell you come back next month or come back next quarter, because you're doing a good job of staying in their face, but you're also not being super annoying. Some people, I'll tell you, will respect your persistency when you have this aggressive follow-up sequence. Some people are going to think it's really annoying and irritating and just write you off, but we don't care about those people. We care about the ones who appreciate it and see that we're going to work really hard for their freight because of how well we follow up. And that's as simple as what the follow-up process looks like. The biggest thing about follow-up is if you're struggling with it and if you've asked questions about it, it's probably because you fear rejection of some kind, or you fear being annoying, which is a legitimate fear of somebody, especially somebody new in sales. But what I have to tell you is the same thing that I always say in all my videos. Some will, some won't, so what? Some people will be receptive, some will not. Who cares either way? You can rewind this back, take some notes on what our frequency of follow-up looks like, but just to be even more clear and give a little bit more value for you guys, there is going to be a follow-up guide in the description here. You can download that. It's going to help you a lot with what to say, when to say it. Maybe there's going to be like a little calendar in there to help guide you in your follow-up process. All right. So that's all I have for you for follow-up. You know, that's a very high level follow-up I can talk about for hours, but we're not going to do that today. All that information, if you're interested in more advanced follow-up techniques, those are going to be in the Freight Skills Academy or Freight Skills High Level, which you feel free to message or email me about. Hopefully this helps you with your follow-up, and I hope you enjoyed this video. But before you go, when you go and download that free guide that I told you about, I want you to scroll down a little bit farther. There's going to be something there that says free Facebook group. And if you're not a part of the Freight Broker Network on Facebook, it's a free community where I hang out and help people with any shipping questions that they can possibly have. I answer every single question personally. I'd love to see you in there if you're not already. So make sure you invite yourself using the link below, and I will personally approve your invitation, and you can introduce yourself and get to know the rest of the Freight Skills community, which is the most uplifting community of freight brokers on the internet, as far as I've seen at least. All right, so I look forward to seeing you in there. I look forward to seeing you on the next video, and get to following up with those customers, all right? Until the next video, I'll see you soon.